Dear viewers, this is the second and last part of our discussion about the Restoration Comedy. The English poet John Dryden has also produced some Restoration comedies. Of all his comedies, Marriage à la Mode is the most successful. It was performed in 1672. It explores the implications of the Restoration attitude to sex, marriage, honor, virtue, and society in a situation where A's wife is B's mistress and B's fiancée is A's mistress. In the end, complications ensue, and the characters find that they prefer their original partners after all. It means that they have to accept the dictates of the conventional morality. The play is set in Sicily because of the requirements of the otiose heroic action which is stuck on the comedy. The Princess Palmyra of Sicily is raised with her childhood sweetheart Leonidas, who is the rightful heir to the throne. The pair fall in love with each other. Their marriage will undo the wrongs of Palmyra's father, who has usurped the throne of Leonidas. The play reminds us of Shakespeare's Tempest, in which the evil unleashed by the misdeeds of the older generation is undone by the younger generation. Dryden's friend Congreve was the perfect practitioner of the Restoration Comedy. Paying him tribute, Dryden says, "In him all the beauties of the age we see." Not all Congreve's comedies are, however, in the true Restoration mode. The Old Bachelor, first produced in 1693, combines farce, satire, and Johnsonian humor. The characteristic Restoration attitude to marriage is given a new dimension in the dilemma of Hartwell, the old bachelor, and Fondlewife, the jealous husband of a young wife. The prose dialogue is brisk and witty, and helps to provide a unity of tone to the plot, which contains several divergent strands. Love for Love, produced in 1695, is in many respects more reminiscent of the Johnsonian comedy of humours than the Restoration comedy of manners. Valentine, an impoverished gallant, incurs the displeasure of his unloving father, Sir Sampson, on account of his extravagance. He is besieged by creditors. His father offers him £4,000 to pay his debt, provided he surrenders his right of inheritance to his younger brother Ben. Valentine's conflict with his father and his attempt to avoid signing over his inheritance forms the central conflict of the play. Matters are brought to a climax when Angelica tricks Sir Sampson into believing she wishes to marry him. Disheartened by the news and believing Angelica has rejected him once and for all, Valentine agrees to sign the paper. Angelica, moved by Valentine's sacrifice, tears up the bond and declares her love for him. The comedy is enlivened by its witty dialogues and humorous characters. Among these are Sir Sampson, with his blunt vivacity, Ben, the rough young sea dog, and Forsyth, the gullible old astrologer. Love for Love is the most satirical of all Congreve's plays. The Way of the World, produced in 1700, was Congreve's last and finest comedy. It contains numerous events and intrigues. The plot of the play seems to follow a logic of its own. Before the action of the play unfolds itself, certain events are understood to have previously taken place. Mirabell, a typical Restoration beau, is devising a secret scheme to win Millament's hand in marriage, gaining her fortune as well. Millament's aunt and guardian, Lady Wishfort, is opposed to this match because Mirabell once gave her the impression that he was in love with Lady Wishfort. On the other hand, Lady Wishfort's son-in-law, Mr. Fennel, is having an affair with Mrs. Marwood. Mrs. Marwood discloses Mirabell's secret plan to Lady Wishfort out of jealousy, since she herself loves Mirabell. Mrs. Marwood also discloses another secret. She tells Mr. Fennel that Mirabell was once romantically involved with his wife, Mrs. Fennel. The two plan to foil Mirabell's scheme. In the meanwhile, Lady Wishfort decides to marry Millament to her nephew, Sir Wilful. Now Fennel's plan to gain Millament's inheritance, Arabel's property, and Lady Wishfort's money is thwarted. To Towards the end, Millamant breaks her engagement and she and Mirabell receive Lady Wishfort's blessing for marriage. According to David Dacius, The Way of the World represents the fine flower of Restoration comedy. It is a mellower and profounder comedy in which hero and heroine, perfectly aware of each other's faults, reveal the complexity of all human relations. The most important writer of Restoration comedy is Sir John Vanbrugh. His comedies show the decline of the genre. He lacks the poise and wit of Congreve. The relapse treats a husband's adultery is an act of sexual passion forced on him against his better judgment and against his genuine love for his wife. The real comedy of the play, however, lies in the subplot where a younger brother gulls his elder brother and carries off the heiress intended for the elder. The Provoked Wife is the next important comedy of Vanbrugh. Lady Brutt is trapped in a loveless marriage to her drunkard husband, Sir John Brutt. They married for wealth and lust respectively, and they are both now desperate for a way out of that union. Despite her strict moral conscience, Lady Brutt falls for the dashing Constant, who loves her passionately. At the same time, her niece Belinda tries to charm the renowned woman-hater Heartfree. One day Sir John Brutt discovers that Constant and Heartfree are hidden in the closet of his home. Realizing that he is being cuckolded, he resigns himself to his fate. Vanbrugh's comedy is a mixture of Elizabethan, Jacobean and sentimental comedy. With George Farquhar, English comedy moves still further away from the Restoration ideal. In some respects, Farquhar too writes comedy like an Elizabethan. Farquhar both mocks and enjoys human passions, follies, hypocrisies, and stratagems. The relation between reputation and money has an air of enjoyment about it. In the book Stratagem, Archer and Aimwell, two recently impoverished rakes, decide to pose as wealthy gentlemen and a servant in order to find wealthy wives and restore their fortunes. Aimwell is drawn to a beautiful local heiress, Dorina, while Archer finds himself attracted to her sister-in-law, Mrs. Sullen, who is trapped in an unhappy marriage. The legal system does not approve of breakups on the grounds of incompatibility. Furthermore, at that time, divorce left women disgraced and penniless. On the other hand, Aimwell suffers from the prick of conscience and confesses to Dorinda that he is a fraud, falsely bearing his brother's title. Impressed by his true love, Dorinda accepts Aimwell for herself. In the meanwhile, it transpires that Aimwell's brother has died, and he succeeds to his title and estate. Towards the end, Mrs. Sullen is also freed from the clutches of her husband. In the final analysis, Restoration comedy thus begins with Etheridge and reaches its consummation in Congreve. It reflects the ideal social world of Charles II. Its relation to the spirit of the age is thus discernible. It is interesting to note that 6 centuries after the Norman conquest, French cultural influence flowed into England again through the restoration of monarchy. The Norman conquest brought the tradition of courtly love to England, and the restoration of monarchy brought the Restoration comedy. Courtly love was an idealization of adultery, and Restoration comedy projected the ideals of seduction, adultery, and cuckoldry. In the triangle of love, the husband was no longer an all-powerful medieval lord, but a gullible, pathetic cuckold. Thank you very much.